This is the real estate agency disclosure and election form. There are different boxes that are checked whether you're a buyer or seller. I'm going to go through the seller side of this document. So up here at the top, my brokerage goes here, my name goes here. And then the rest of it just discloses and outlines my responsibilities to you as a real estate agent. So for this particular video, we will outline the broker, the seller's broker here, lines 13 through 15. A broker under a listing agreement with the seller acts as the broker for the seller only. A seller's broker has fiduciary duties of loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, and accounting and dealings with the seller. Other potential sellers represented by the broker may list properties that are similar to the property that the seller is selling. So basically what this section right here says is that I have duties to you. I have fiduciary duties to you as the seller: loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, and accountings and dealings with the seller. So if we're in the middle of negotiations, I get some information that the buyer's agent has disclosed to me that is helpful in our negotiations, and I'm obviously going to pass that along to you. My job is to look out for your best interest and get you the best possible deal that I can get you on your home. However, that also means that I do have things that I have to disclose to a seller's or to a buyer's agent if necessary. I try to keep as much as I can confidential, but there are times that I do have to disclose information to the buyer's agent. They may ask me, situation like, when you're selling your home, do you have somewhere else to go? Well, it depends on the circumstances on what you're trying to do. It might help us in negotiation, leveraging something in those negotiations. But if it's a divorce, I don't necessarily have to disclose that, as long as both parties are in agreement on selling the property, or there's a court order or something along those lines. In that case, it would be to your benefit to not really disclose it, as long as everybody's in the agreement that we have to, or that they're all going to sign the paperwork and we're all going to be able to move on. There might be other times where something happens and we have to, make sure that the buyer knows. Maybe the AC goes out in the property after the buyer has gone under contract on the property. It's your responsibility as a seller to fix that, and I would have to disclose that. If there's water damage or something like that, a known issue to the property, that all has to be disclosed. So, but there are certain things that don't have to be disclosed in order to make a real estate transaction possible and to go smoothly. So if it's questionable, I will talk you through it. I will walk you through it. But basically what this says is my job is to look out for your best interest and make sure that I'm protecting you and getting you the best deal on your home. The line B, or line 15 right here, it's possible that I might have clients who are selling their home in a similar area, similar type property. And all this is saying is that might be the case, and I might be representing more than one seller at a time, and that's being disclosed to you at that time. So then down here, lines 24 through 33, those apply to everybody, regardless of whether you're a buyer or a seller. Basically, it states that and lines 24 through 30 basically just state that there are certain things the seller does not have to disclose at the time of sale. So whether there was death, homicide, suicide, somebody with HIV or AIDS living at the property, if there was a crime that was classified as a felony, anything along those lines, that actually does not have to be disclosed. If it's in the vicinity of a sex offender, you don't have to disclose that either. That's all on the buyer and the buyer's responsibility to do their own due diligence during their inspection period. And then so this actually comes up multiple times in multiple different pieces of paperwork. So it's really important that everybody is aware that there are certain things that you don't have to disclose as a seller, and that's one of them. And anything in bold is always important. So I'll just read through it with you. The duties of the broker in a real estate transaction do not relieve the seller or the buyer from responsibility to protect their own interests. The seller and the buyer should carefully read all agreements to ensure the documents adequately express their understanding of the transaction. So I've done multiple videos on all the documents, so it breaks them down pretty good in terms of what you can expect and what you're signing when you sign these documents. And this one is just outlining. This is actually not the document that you use to hire me. If I'm representing you as a seller, that's actually the listing agreement. This outlines my responsibilities to you once you do hire me. So down here, we skip the section here regarding the buyer. We go straight to the seller or landlord election. In this one, we would always check box 42, where I'm representing you as the seller's broker. And then number 43, Show seller's property to buyers represented by the broker's firm, and seller agrees that the broker shall act as an agent for both the seller and buyer, provided that the buyer consents to the limited representation. In the event of a purchase, buyer and seller's informed consent should be acknowledged in separate writing other than the purchase contract. So there is a separate document. It's called actually right here, it's called the limited representation document. So in this case, in Arizona, you are allowed to represent both a buyer and a seller on the sale or purchase of a home. I have a broker that reviews all my paperwork, and they would oversee. So technically, they're the ones that are handling the transaction. I'm working on behalf of my broker. So it's possible that there might be a case where there are two brokers, myself and another agent, that also works for my brokerage, that we're both, one's handling one side and I'm handling the other side, and we're both working towards the closing of the deal. That's where this box applies to. In some very limited cases, there may be a time where I represent both the buyer and seller. At that point in time, obviously, that would be a more in-depth conversation with both parties to ensure that everybody's aware of how that works. And then here on line 46, we check the seller's box, print name and sign and date.